All right, the final days were upon us. Quite literally.
Okay. So first I wanted to talk about translating the main scenario of 6.0. As those of you who listened to
excited
Yoshi
for
P's
this, actually.
presentation
I wish I
about
could have got to hear
6.0
this live.
before we released it may be aware, the main scenario was much larger than in previous expansions.
Yeah. Very dense.
So how large? It turns out that after we translated it, it was about 244,000 words, which, if you want an easy comparison, that's a bit more than Crime and Punishment. I don't know. I feel like Dostoevsky should get on Ishikawa-san's level.
Oh my god. Yo.
So how large? It turns out that after we translated it, it was about 244,000 words, which, if you want an easy comparison, that's a bit more than Crime and Punishment.
Dude.
I don't know. I feel like Dostoevsky should get on Ishikawa-san's level.
Dostoevsky should get on Ishikawa-san's level. Oh my god. A bit more, by the way. Yeah, 33,000 words more. That's...
And that is a daunting task. Like, I know from your perspective, it takes us a long time to release an expansion.
And then you have to translate that. Holy fuck, dude. Not only do you have that, but then you make it into English too. What? And all sorts of other languages. Holy shit.
But from our perspective, we have to translate all of this in a very short period of time. About half of this text was part of the voice script, so we also had to prepare it for voice recording and record it much earlier.
And that could,
the rest
yeah,
of the
could add
stuff
words.
was translated because we have a lot of other teams that are working with us, right? We have to have it ready so that cutscene team and sound team.
Oh, writing it from zero, I'm sure would be worse. That's so much. Right. I get you, Argentino. Yeah. That's why localization teams are so important, but obviously the original, I mean, it's just so much.
QA, who
So
are
much
somewhere in this
collaboration.
audience, I think.
There they
QA can do their thing. So it ends up being, when we translate the voice script, which is mostly what I will just talk about today, because otherwise we'll be here till we die. When we translate the voice script, it usually takes about 3 months for an expansion.
Well, we know at least if we're here until we die that Yoshida-san will still be working on Final Fantasy. So he said as much himself.
It's about the amount of time we have to prepare all of that. In Endwalker, we did end up taking a little bit over 4, maybe 4.5, because, whoa, that was big.
How long did it take Dostoevsky to write Crime and Punishment?
I don't know.
Probably more than 4 months.
Probably more, yeah.
Yeah, well.
We win.
Well, Ishikawa-san had to write it first. Like, how was she alive? Yeah, one thing I notice is a lot of people seem to be under the impression that either Koji or now I do all of the main scenario translation by ourselves. And I'm here to tell you, if we did that, we would be dead.
Yes.
With Endwalker, we also had a little bit of added pressure. Of course, we always want to do the best that we can with translation to make
In other words, give credit where credit's due, where she's going there. Like, it is not just us. There's a lot of people who help, a lot of other people.
To communicate the story to you guys and give you guys the best experience possible. But with Endwalker, of course, it was this conclusion to this epic tale, and we were freaking out. Like, all of the
It doesn't expand on it. I know.
Perfect. This has to be perfect. So we also had this extra consideration of we cannot let there be any quality issues here. We cannot let there be any translation issues that will affect your overall understanding of the story. And furthermore, I'm talking a lot about main scenario, but we always have to be aware that there is other text in the game. In fact, the main scenario is about, at best, maybe a third of the amount of text in an expansion. And
I read it all. Just fucking saying. For you, for Koji, for Ishikawa-san, everybody, I read it all. I read all of it.
And if you forget that, you will end up in a Thal's Balls situation. Koji, would you like to tell us about what you did?
About what I did? What? Okay. So,
That thing? Oh, yeah.
when you create a game, you have to submit it to the ESRB. ratings 0. You have to release it to Peggy in Europe, and you have to do. They
Peggy 16.
want you to submit this very, very early, but our translation schedule usually happens where it's like we're translating right up to the end, which means when it comes to, okay, now you have to submit this to get your rating, the text is not done. But the ESRB needs to see something. So we need to put something in there. And so what do? I just made all the text stalls balls and hoped that the ESRB wouldn't notice. And we got our rating. T for teen.
We did. That was when I was in QA and I was part of the ratings team, and we saw this and it was like, still not the weirdest thing I've seen here.
I mean, hey, if you feel like that's one of the close to the wackiest things, or furthest out there things that happens, I feel like you get your rating on that. Just don't cross that line, right? I mean, that's easy enough, right? Like Nafika's tits.
It worked out, but this kind of thing does semi-frequently happen because as much as we try, we do spend a lot of effort on the main scenario, and then we always end up rushing somehow. There was an interesting time in Shadowbringers when we had to submit for Peggy, but the main scenario had not been written until very close to the deadline.
It's Nafika's teats.
So we ended up translating it. I translated I don't want to.
I think I've actually seen someone say Nafika's tits. I'm pretty sure, doesn't Geralt say that? Nafika's tits? I swear. Maybe I'm wrong.
How much? It was, we translated a large
Is
amount.
it teats? I thought they said it at one point.
3 days.
Maybe that's not true.
Basically by just spewing the first thing that came into our minds into the text box. And that is how we all got the player dialogue option of might die, but I wrote that stream of consciousness, and then I was going back through later to edit it and make everything actually make sense. And I was like, no, you know what?
No,
yeah,
that's perfect.
Yeah,
this works.
I feel like we've all been there, maybe just once in our lives. Might die, but at least one time. Fuck it.
So we do have a question here that is sort of related, and I tried to weave in a few player questions so we could at least get to a few of them. So this is related to basically the volume of text that we handle in some ways. So one person asked, I've noticed that some of the more stylized English localization choices, like some of our very old speak sort of you must needs type of stuff, have been sort of trimmed down and made a little bit more accessible. And I think that was a
good question
choice that came about around Stormblood, Koji.
Yeah, it was kind of we had big
Urianger-isms. Yeah, we must needs is probably the best example. Pray tell, pray return to, those types of things.
When we first start out, and we wanted to make it something that was very language heavy.
We must needs change like unto the seasons, ere greeting the world anew. Verily?
We wanted to just go all out. We wanted to do something different.
Let us be about it then. Is autumn is.
And I mean, now that I look back at it, maybe we kind of went just a little bit overboard on some of those, especially Limsa Lominsa pirate speak.
Yeah, dude, it's unfucking believable. As someone who started in Limsa Lominsa, dude, it was brutal. It was brutal. Motherfuckers are saying a paragraph, and half of the words in the paragraph have an apostrophe in them because they're missing half the letters in the word. It was fucking tough, dude.
And also Urianger.
Yeah.
But the thing is, back then, again, there was less text. And so, a character, Urianger, back in the 1.x times, it's just this crazy guy, wearing a placard saying, the end is nigh. And it's like, okay, he's not going to have many lines. He's going to be gone. Yeah, we can go all out on this guy. Yeah, sure, we're going to go super, difficult language, thinking that he's literally going to be gone at the end of 1.x.
What? Urianger was a doomsayer character? He was a literal doomsayer and he got turned into a scholar? Oh my god! Urianger and me must be related, bro. The turns have tabled.
And lo,
What?
Urianger is now all over the f***ing place.
What?
Look at him now in the trailer holding a pineapple.
I know, just fucking coozing it, dude. He's having a great time.
Did anyone expect that? It was like, meteor is coming, the world is ending. Pineapple, yeah.
It's because this time it wasn't doom and gloom. In this trailer, it actually was like about new adventure, new horizons, exploring a new place, you know? We'll see who does it better. Because frankly, isn't that what World of Warcraft tried to do? After the Legion? And then they kind of tried to ramp it up again, and look how that went. So I'm curious to see who's going to do it better, but I think we all know the answer to that question. I think we do. I don't really think we have to wonder. I think it's going to be pretty cut and dry. I really hope that this newfound adventure, new sense of like wonder, I really hope that we all fall into it, and like that the new continents, and I hope that when we're over there, we do find our way to like golden cities and shit, like El Dorado style. Like that would be sick. I'm super, super excited for the new premise, and to not have this insane, foreboding, universe-ending threat, you know, necessarily. To have the premise at least start based on contest is interesting, and I think cool. One thing I would do that I think that you guys should consider is think about how Endwalker started. Think about how Shadowbringer started. Think about those kinds of things. Maybe not those two, actually, because they were more direct in the themes that they wanted to tackle, right? And those are very foreboding, actually, like end time style. So maybe don't even look at those. Maybe think more Heavensward, Stormblood style of like, where did we start and like, how did we find our way to other places? I think that that's a good way of looking at it, because it's very easy to be blinded by where do we start at the beginning, because it can go to so many wonderful, unexpected different places that like, it's good, I think, to just remind yourself that like, what you start with is often much different than where it goes. And that helps, I don't know, just open your mind up a little bit to some of the more fun, like crazy kind of things that might happen. So we'll see.
So
some of the New World architecture looks very similar to Ronka, Dave. I 100% agree. As soon as I saw it, I was like, wow, that, it's like, that looks Ronkan. That's, we like that. I'm okay with that. Maybe like old Alligans or something, you know, maybe if some, I'm just saying, bro, like they didn't just become, you know, architects of the world's destruction in a day, you know?
The thing is that as we get more and more Urianger quests, we kind of realize that there's no way that we
I'm
can
excited for
sustain this. Because again, we want to put our all into it. We want to make it perfect, but there's just so much of it, and there's so much other text as well that we had to figure out, okay, what are we going to do? We want to keep that essence of Urianger, but we want to be able to actually go home and sleep at night. So we decided to, again, kind of switch things to make them a little bit more accessible. I think there's still a lot of the original Urianger there, but...
I would like to throw in there, one of the things that I'm most excited about with like the premise of the New World is the potential for like more like delving into like spiritual things, like animal, like if you were to go to like animal spirits or things like that, or looking into, if you were to look into like Central or South American like old legends and shit that like come out of the Yucatan Peninsula and shit like that, like vampires and shit, like there's so much opportunity for dope shit to come out of this. I just really hope that like I hope it's inoffensive, first of all, but I also just hope that like, I don't know, I want to see more of that, like that we just don't really, I don't know, I just don't feel like we get in FF that much. But yeah, Aztecs, like Mayans, like seriously, there's some really cool stuff in there, so I'm excited for it. Hopefully it's cool.
He himself, it's fine. I mean, it's not fine sometimes when it's like 11 p.m. and I have to think about Elizabethan English.
Incans, yep.
But, you know, he himself is fine. It's just if
All
everyone talks like
anything
that, we
in
have sort of a concern that
North America, Plains tribes and all that type of stuff.
You're going to get tired reading it.
That too.
Writing it certainly takes longer.
A
it's
llama
less
minion?
efficient,
Oh.
and it's a bit harder to quality check as well. So we kind of did that to streamline the process so we could sustain the quality going forward. And also an additional note from my time in QA, I distinctly remember, since you mentioned Limsa, I distinctly remember I had that 14 Nom Nom comic that where like the Lalafell is talking to Badera and he's talking in like weird pirate speak and she goes, "Are you having a stroke?" Like, I had that pinned to my desk for at least a year.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about what the translation process actually entails.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super stoked
I'm not
about
sure
that.
we've ever talked about this before. We sometimes talk about little bits and pieces, like I did with Ishikawa-san's panel yesterday. But I wanted to talk a little bit about how the process works and how we get through all of it in this amount of time, and how we try our very best to keep everything high quality so you guys can enjoy it. So first, at the beginning of an expansion, we have to decide who...
We're literally gonna fight a winged serpent inspired by Kukulkan or Quetzalcoatl. Do you think that they'll use Valagarmonda for that? Do you think that that's what Valagarmonda's for?
Doing what. And our team is actually bigger than you probably expect. So as I mentioned, we have 2 leads. We also have maybe 2 editors, except we had 1 in Endwalker because Koji...
Valagarmonda reminds me a lot of Hakar from World of Warcraft. You guys know Hakar? It's like a red and blue feathered serpent. It's fucking sick. It reminds me a lot of that.
Stole Morgan for his little side project called FF16.
I'm sorry.
Thanks a lot. Everything bad that happens to me is your fault. We also have a team of core translators that have been on the game for a really long time, like think the entire time. And we do have some newer folks that we've then brought in to train up to do that. And then during expansions, we often borrow other translators from the company who know what they're doing as translators, but are maybe not as familiar with literally 10 years worth of 14 lore. So when we're talking about translating the scenario, we usually rely on our core translators. Because as you will see, the leads are doing a lot of other stuff other than main scenario, so it actually is not us that is translating a lot of the main scenario. And I think it was largely like that in your time as well.
Yeah, again, it's with each expansion, you decide who's going to do what, and you try to follow that. And there's always going to have to be people coming in to help, but you can't expect them to know all of that knowledge. And so it falls on the leads and the people that have been there the longest to basically check that stuff that comes in and make sure everything is at that straight line. So it's a lot more work for the leads.
Yes, yes it is. So yeah, all right. So once we've decided who's doing what, we're going to read the plot summaries that the dev team kindly provides to us. They are usually quite long. Like those in themselves are kind of a novel, and I'm just, how does everyone on this project not have horrible tendinitis? So once we get those, we then all come together as a team, not just the English team, but the other localization teams for French and German to discuss these plots. And we try to pull out things that we particularly want to focus on, we're particularly worried about. We discuss things like, what are we going to call stuff? So some of the things we were really focused on in Endwalker were like, for instance, of course, this is the end of the Heidelin and Zodiark plot. So we really wanted to make sure that the story we were telling was accurate to how the devs wanted this story to end. So this means that we did end up with a lot of questions for Ishikawa-san about, like, how do you want Heidelin to be portrayed? You know, we've had this shocking reveal in a previous patch that she's sort of a primal, and now we have Zodiark showing up, so we wanted to know exactly how she should come across to the player. That sort of thing is something we will then take up and present to the devs in like a huge pile of questions that they then have to sort through. And then we will talk about things like voice casting. Like obviously in 6.0, a big thing was Thavnair. Like, how are we going to portray this? Can we get the right actors who are from the right backgrounds? Because obviously we don't want to have a Simpsons Apu situation when we're trying to portray someone speaking with an accent.
For anyone who doesn't know what she means by that, Apu, pretty sure is the guy that runs the Quickie Mart. And he has like a very stereotypical, like Indian accent, and it's someone consider it offensive. So that's what she means by that. She's not trying to have this like very stereotypical, like offensive voices.
Right backgrounds, because obviously we don't want to have a Simpsons Apu situation when we're trying to portray someone speaking with an accent.
Especially considering the guy that voices him is white. Yep, there you go.
Of course, the Hermes Amon Fandaniel conundrum.
You want some shitty chicken, that shitty walk? Fucking South Park. dark, dude.
This was very important to talk about in advance because literally trying to explain this to a voice actor, like imagine this for a minute. Be like, first you were a guy like a million billion years ago, but not a normal human, like a super special human with super special depression.
That's the official term.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then in this next scene, you're like a guy who was like actually some Asian guy, but then he got body snatched, and now he's sort of an immortal guy who's trying to end the world. Don't worry about it. Be wacky. It's great. And then you have this other third guy who's like wearing a very fancy hat and like neck ruff. And you just look at that and I guess try to figure out what to do with it. It was complicated. So first we tried to all discuss it and figure out what's going on so we can then correctly portray that when we're explaining it to the voice actors. And finally, this is when we decide what kind of terminology we're using. So this is when we decided, okay, it's going to be the beasts of the final days because that's the theme the devs really want to play on. But for the really big ones, the first one that shows up in every area and freaks everyone out, this is when we decided to call it blasphemies because they first appear in Razat Han. And the Hanish have this sort of concept of, okay, this is some very corrupt version of our divinities, so we've called them blasphemies, and then that catches on everywhere, and then we have a consistent term that hopefully you were able to follow. I know it does get a little bit confusing. Woo, confusion!
Confusion!
I did not do the 8-man fight. No, when I found out that they weren't giving out a t-shirt or anything, I didn't go.
So then we get on to the proper translation bit, and this is the part that people tend to ask us about, right?
Yeah.
People always want to know, like, what is your translation philosophy? I think there is sort of an idea that we are sitting there and sort of ruminating at length, which we sometimes do, though, I mean, due to the volume, we can't always spend as much time as you're probably imagining. We are not, despite the common perception, we are not just sitting there all day like, what's a pun that I could do? Those puns just come out.
I don't know if I believe.
You see a pun, it was that was some person's first thought. So like,
actually,
it is a mess
okay.
up here.
Fair enough. We have Alec.
On the more serious subject of the main scenario
At this
voice
point,
script, which is again the most prominent and important stuff in the game. I try to think about translation as something where you are looking at the text in multiple levels. And so the important part is not necessarily the words, I mean it is, but you're also thinking about how the words have a function within the text, right? No word just exists in a vacuum. There's a way we tend to use it as part of our culture. There's a way it's functioning in the scene to create things like imagery.
Ooh, I love this, dude. Ooh, I really love this insight because I've had this sentiment about writing before, about how a lot, in many cases, depending on who's writing it, words are not put in places on accident. And like, so word usage is very important, I think, in many cases for determining, for hypothesizing, for trying to figure out the outcome of any given situation. And it's very cool to hear from her that like, everything is very deliberate, I like that.
And so the important part is not necessarily the words, I mean it is, but you're also thinking about how the words have a function within the text.
Right, what is it meant
No
to make you feel? What's it meant to make you, like, a lot of people don't stop to just acknowledge that words are very often placed in a specific way in order to invoke a thought. And so a lot of this, I would think, comes from how do I get the reader or viewer's mind to go to this place? And I think that's kind of part of what she's saying here. And I don't know. I think that context clues in this game very often make me feel an emotion or lead me to a place that like ends up being relatively, as far as relatively accurate as far as what they're trying to portray. So I think they do at least for me anyway, from my experience, a really a good job of doing that.
Exists in a vacuum. There's a way we tend to use it as part of our culture. There's a way it's functioning in the scene to create things like imagery. And it's creating, when you put all the words together, they are creating an emotional experience. And you have to understand what that experience is going to be for the Japanese audience and what it's meant to be before you can even start to think about how would this be communicated in English.
Yeah.
I mean, often people
You
think
have to have that
translation is
basis, because that basis of word choice is literally what directs the whole thing. Once you can adjust that for a different culture, you know, different dialect, different language entirely, like, dude, this is a sick panel. I appreciate being recommended this. I like this one a lot.
more a process of you just have this sentence full of words and you take one at a time and you replace them with the closest thing you can find. But that's really not the case, because if you were to do that, you would lose all these other levels. You would lose, you know, their actual meaning in terms of how they're functioning in the overall work. So when we look at these things, we want to be looking at, this is where this entire expansion is going to take us. And then we're going to translate accordingly. Of course, when you have this many levels of things, like you have your words, you have your imagery, you have your scenes, you have your character arcs, and then you have your overall story arcs, and then you have your like tiny little nuances, there is always something that is going to be different between languages. And you have to, and I know that can be a little
It's inevitable and it's hard to accept, but that is why we have different languages. Like, I know that's like such a kind of a dumb, obvious take from me, I feel like, but like, if it all translated one-to-one, there would be no reason to have, there'd be no reason for different languages. We'd all speak the same fucking language, but we don't.
bit difficult to accept, like, oh, I'm never going to experience this the same way as the Japanese audience. But on the other hand, you're never going to experience it the same way as the person sitting next to you, right?
True.
We all bring our own stuff to the work that we are experiencing. And so, yeah, in that case, you sort of have to decide for yourself, like, what your balance is going to be. And I try to pick out, these are the most important things. These are the things we cannot afford to lose in this story, in this scene, and in terms of what language is being used in the Japanese. And then from there, I sort of build out into something that I think will give you the same emotional experience that the Japanese audience is having. So if I'm crying while I'm translating, which is a frequent occurrence, I want to make sure that the end product will also make you cry.
Thank you. Because it does. It does.
Yeah, I mean,
it works.
Based on the signing session I did with Ishikawa-san, I think we were successful. Everyone was like, I cried. And I'm like, me too, yeah.
I mean, my 3.2 or 3.3 ending video is literally titled, I'm not crying, you're crying. Okay, we're all crying. Like, it's inevitable. Like, yeah.
Yeah,
awesome.
But of course, you know, a lot of this is personal interpretation, and that is just a fact of what translation is. You are always going to be subject to the interpretation of the person that's translating it, because there is no other way to do it. However,
and that right there, I think, is a great way to express the fact that translation is more than words to words, right? It definitely, language in and of itself, I see it as an art, form of communication, obviously, but also an art. And I think that the ability to adequately translate it with emotional impact and all of that like meaning behind it in such a way that like an audience of a completely different language could enjoy it just the same as like, I mean, that is an art. That really is an art. That's why I think we should be so thankful for people like Kate, because it's really like without the people doing that, our experience that we are all so attached to, it's just not the same. So it's pretty fucking sick.
However, that doesn't mean like I just want this all to be my own interpretation 100%, right?
Sure.
Which is why we all discuss it as a team. We try to find something that is close enough to how the Japanese audience is going to be experiencing it from all of our perspectives, so that we can kind of have an even and consistent experience that we can translate to you. And during that process, a lot of what we do is asking questions to the devs. We are very fortunate on this project. Most translators do not get this kind of access to the person writing their original stuff that they're translating. So we do just spend a lot of time going back and forth with the devs, sometimes asking like weirdly detailed questions. And I do think I asked about that
really
thing like 4 different times. Like, how do you want Heidelin to come off here? How do you want Heidelin to come off here?
Dude, doesn't that just make you feel something, chat? Like, just hearing that, I don't know, it's like so reassuring as someone who is like who plays the game and like really cares about it, like to hear that they have that additional access that other people don't is like, it's just another one of those things in like the stack of all the things that make the game great over the years, right? I don't know. It's just that's crazy. That's so awesome that they, if only everyone could work like that. Like, you know, like how much better could other things be if people had the opportunity to work with the original source writers and be able to work on translations like that? Like, gosh, that's cool.
Sometimes I feel like they're probably thinking like, what are they talking about? Like, why are they even confused about this point? It's not necessarily that we're confused, it's that we really want to get to the heart of what they're trying to say so that we can then share that with you.
Yeah.
So I'll just briefly go over the rest of the steps. So, you know...
Dude, I love it.
Found your balance, you've come up with something that you think will communicate what is trying to be said in the writer's heart, right? Then we get to the point where we're trying to ensure consistency because, again, these are very big stories and we cannot have one person translating the entire thing. That would be nice for consistency, but we cannot do it.
The big sigh.
So once we're done with our own sections, we will self-check. We will make sure that the lines, of course, fit the time sinks of the cutscenes because otherwise we would be in a whole big problem. We want to make sure it fits the motion so nothing looks too out of place, and that it sounds good so that when we take it to record, it will sound fine. And
yeah, think about that, dude. Not only do you have to translate everything and put it into actual structured dialogue, but then you have to sync all of that up with all of the animations, cutscenes. Dude. And then someone has to actually read it. The amount of labor, dude, that's unbelievable. Like I guess it's just something that you take for granted when you don't stop to think about all of the different steps, dude. Damn.
And not totally like, I just wrote this and no one ever speaks like this, but now it's being spoken aloud and it's really noticeable.
Seriously, Nazero, seriously.
And then we'll have another translator cross-check it against the Japanese to make sure everything is accurate.
Fuck, like it inspires me to want to learn to speak, some Japanese. Like, goddamn.
And then we will have an editor come in and edit it. And that person usually does not look so much at the Japanese. They read it through as a player would and try to understand, like, this is the experience we're getting from it. Is anything super confusing? Does anything sound terrible?
Does that align with
usually,
what you want out of
the
it?
wording a bit. Or a lot, in some cases.
In some cases.
Our editors are very, very good. For instance, I know Ishikawa-san mentioned the Tales from the Shadows, Ere Our Curtain Falls yesterday. And M itself soliloquy at the end there that is all in iambic pentameter. I wrote it a little bit poetically to begin with, and then I gave it to our editor, and I was like, can you make this into iambic pentameter? And he did.
Wow.
So that's the level they are on.
Okay, now what?
So Morgan Rushton and John Crow, everybody.
Yes.
Lambda.
And of course, throughout...
Sorry, she just name dropped. Let's give him some credit there.
Yes. So Morgan Rushton and John Crow, everybody.
Yeah.
Morgan Rushton and John Crow. And to be able to point them out like that, I think, dude, I know I'm like gushing about this, but there's just a very clear mutual respect between people that work on this shit and how they want to give each other credit and say the names and stuff.
Yes. And
They
of
do it
course,
all the
throughout
time.
this whole process, which looks something like this, each color is a different person. So we have it broken
Iambic pentameter is the stereotypical Shakespeare sound. A lot of Shakespearean literature is written in iambic pentameter.
up into different translators, cross-checkers, and editors. And throughout this whole process, the Japanese team is also doing something similar. So they are checking...
There's the Shakespeare meter. He used it extensively. Right, I think for me it's like because I didn't really understand the use of the term meter in this case. So like understanding like it's the rhythm of speech is, it's just really cool. Your reading skills are ill, fight me. Yeah, and knowing that Evan Selk was big in a theater, it's perfectly fitting for him. Oh my god, yeah, because it's his soliloquy. Right, she's talking about Emmett Selk. Yeah, dude, that's sick.
It's like they will write it, and then, for instance, the lore team will check it, and then maybe Ishikawa-san, of course.
The meter's like Baba 5 above. Oh, I see what you're saying. I get
She was the one writing, but another writer will check it, and
Fan
then
Daniel's
Yoshiki
lines
will
too?
check it. So these checks are going on as we are translating, and so every day is just terror about when the revisions are going to come in, and we're going to have to redo everything we've done thus far.
Yes. And that happens.
Yeah.
Pretty much every time.
Yes.
You'll get, okay, yeah, this
What's
is
a
done.
soliloquy?
Here you go.
A soliloquy is like, it's like when someone is like voicing like their internal thoughts are like aloud, even if no one else is around. So like, but specifically for characters in a play. So it's like a monologue essentially. But because Emmett, as in a sense, a performer or fan of theater, soliloquy is very well suited for Emmett because it just fits right into his acting and all of that, right?
Translators, it's ready to go. It's 100% finished, and we're like, is it 100% finished? Like, it's 100. It's not going to change. Okay, and we translate. 2 weeks later, okay, Yoshi P did his check, and we've rewritten the whole thing.
Yeah, it's
again.
like, it's that dramatic Shakespearean stand under the spotlight and talk, about, even if no one is around to hear it.
That
But
does happen.
it's always better for that.
It
but
is.
on
Like,
the
you
other-
can't complain
yes,
about
you
it.
can't
It's what I do whenever I try to keep my plan for the next 30 minutes intact in my head.
The same
Because,
thing,
yeah.
and it does get better.
It does get better.
It's just,
Yeah.
Do we know what lines are in Iambic Pentameter? It's at the end of, was it Curtain Fall for Tales of the Shadow for Emmett Selk. It was written by Yoshikawa-san, and if you go to the Final Fantasy Lodestone, you can go and pull up, I believe it's Curtain's Fall is what it's called. And it's the final section of it. The short story itself actually ends with the soliloquy. So, yeah, that's what that is. Give me 1 second, chat. I'll be right back. All right.
And then just to wrap up the voice recording process, we will then prepare scripts and reference materials for the studio. We'll talk to our director. We will attend recordings to make sure that everything is accurate to the script and sometimes to rewrite lines if it turns out they don't actually fit the timings despite our best efforts. I did rewrite several bits of Heidelin's last monologue in the studio because that entire thing had to be specifically timed, and it was really hard to come up with something that the voice actor could say naturally and fit the timing, so I rewrote a lot of that in the studio. And then we will...
It's good.
Thank you.
I mean, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Thank you. And then once we get everything back from the studio, we will check every single audio file to make sure there's nothing, like there's no like horrible scratching sound in the middle or something like that. And then we will check everything in the cutscene to make sure it all looks natural. And if it doesn't, we will ask the cutscene team, hey, look, the English is coming off really
That seems
weird
so
here.
good.
Can you please tweak this animation so that it works better for all languages? And that is another thing, yet another thing that we do with French and German team. And we will often compare our audio, which is really quite fun. It's very different between languages, but because of just how differently you would portray like a character in different languages, archetype-wise. But it's really nice. Like, it's really nice to do that. And, everyone's running to each other like, listen to this really cool line that I got.
And of course, there's also, again, it's not here, but there's also the conundrum of the dragon language that we have.
Oh, no, yeah.
And so yeah, that's not taken in each language. There's only one source, and we do that in the English.
Yes.
And the English voice actor will do the draconian lines, and then they're used in all the languages.
Ali un ta shi lo ar.
And there you have your dragon.
It's because it is a crazy language that no one in the world speaks. To get voice actors to be able to do that,
Hey, E-I-O-U. And sometimes Y.
Need a guide, and so a lot of times it's I have to do a voice recording of.
Literally, only Koji understands dragon language. Like we do.
Voiced by Eddie Vedder.
So
You're the VA for dragons? I'd love to VA.
even after-
Listen. I would love to VA. Just, if I could just... Please. Please.
14, and I had kind of shifted over to 16, and I'm still looking
Same,
at
Emmy.
stuff, but I'm doing a lot of 16 stuff.
Way...
Kate's like, we have a bunch of dragon lines this patch. Can you do those? And so I'll do them.
Lol, muted? I'm not muted. You're trolling me. He's trolling me.
And they're like, yeah, this is nice translation, but we're going to need like a voice sample as well.
Well, because that's the hardest part, right? Like, we did have someone who learned the dragon grammar, and like, I can kind of work it out. But what you need is like, have you seen how many H's and stuff are in that? Like, so basically, we have to call Koji so he can come in and like get a little voice recorder and be like, awesome.
It is. I do. So we have like our, our floor, and you got all the devs, and then I go into a one of those meeting rooms that they have on the sides, and then it's just for like 2 hours. I'm like, meeting rooms that they have on the sides, and then it's just for like 2 hours. I'm like, and like every now and then you're gonna see like a dev walk by and they'll kind of stop and like look in the blinds. It's like, what's going on in there? And then they take all of those audio files and then take them to the professional voice actors and like, okay, listen to this.
Yeah, you give it to the voice actors and they're like, excuse me?
And then they'll take, was that good? I was perfect.
And then we get them back, and this kind of happened.
You know what the beautiful thing is, though, is that since they're it's a fantasy language and a fantasy world, you don't have to worry about like getting it perfectly right, because who's gonna check you on it? You're Koji fucking Fox, bro. Like, you make the noises. Like, who's gonna check you on that? You don't even have to worry about it. That's awesome. That'd be so much fun, just having an abstract language. You just have to follow like certain kind of rules, but other than that, you can say essentially whatever the fuck.
Recent patch, and Ishikawa-san was like, does this sound weird?
Well, yeah, obviously, as long as it's not a slur, like, geez.
Like, does the processing on this sound weird? Is the pacing weird? And we're like, is it? So then we had to call Koji again and be like,
this is perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of different things that goes into making it, especially
unless dragons are secretly real, then you have a lot to be worried about. Nobody's wrong if no one knows what you're doing. True. That's why interpretive rap is so good.
Part of the main scenario. But once we're done with all that, we can rest a little bit. No, we can't. What the heck are you talking about? There's still half of a script to finish. We have to do the unvoiced script after we've done the voice script, and then all the rest of the text in the game.
It's a little bit of work.
As you can see, I guess my main point here, though, is that it takes a lot of people to get this done. Like, even when Koji is not technically on the project, he's helping out. You saw my chart of like how many people are involved.
Job
in
security.
Translation.
The only one who speaks dragon.
It is a big team effort, and we are all working very hard to get it done properly.
I agree, Cortical. They all can sound different. How they managed to make the dragon's personality come across despite the made-up language. Yes, I think they do a great job of that.
So now I'm just going to talk a little bit about the other large, massive half of my job, which is doing the lore stuff. And to kick us off,
Hassan calling Koei up for mispronouncing dragon speak, maybe?
So all of the scenario team contributes to the lore in their way, right?
Koji.
There are a select few people who are part of the world lore team. And those folks are the main people in charge of like figuring out, okay, what is our linguistic theme for this area? How are we going to handle this and that? What are the names going to be? But of course, in the process of writing the main scenario, the lore tends to change, get adjusted, and refined. So it's really all of the writers that are working together to come up with it. But I thought I would ask Oda-san, who is the guy who is in charge of remembering all of this somehow, how they get started creating the lore for each area. So this is what he had to say.
Dude, if we could get Einison in fucking 14, I would coom. I would fucking coom. If we could get, oh my god, Ben Starr and, oh my, what is it? Is it Phil Einison? Is that his first name? Either way, those guys are phenomenal. Unfucking real.
So
Benedicta's VA is very good too, dude. Oh my goodness, dude. Oh, there's so many good VAs in that game, it's unreal.
We start with
Ralph Einison, thank you. I knew there's a PH in there. Ralph Einison. Einison. Stuart John's VA just did Dion's VA. Where'd I get John from? Stuart Dion's VA just made a Lalafell Lancer. I did hear about that. Philomar's Grey VA, I also really like Hugo's. Dude, I mean, like I said, most of them in that game are really good.
Core concept. And from that, then you can build out like the rest of your stuff. And these core concepts always balance real life influence with fantasy. That's kind of...
Wait. On lore creation with Ban Ryota. Okay, hold on. Let me just...
The writers that are working together come up with it. But I thought I would ask Oda-san, who is the guy who is in charge of remembering all of this somehow, how they get started creating the lore for each area. So this is what he had to say. So they always start with a core concept. And from that, then you can build out like the rest of your stuff. And these core concepts always balance real life influence with fantasy. That's kind of the FF14 style. So for instance, in the case of Garlemald, the theme was mechanized Roman Empire. That's why you see a lot of Latin. And of course, because they're an empire, they tend a little bit towards the like grim. And you know, they have all of these machina that we have to name. But also an interesting point that we added more recently is because we've decided, you know, Garlemald is this like really, really snowy place. He thought it would make sense to have some Russian culinary influences, and that's how you get some of those nice eating scenes in 6.0.
With the boots.
Yes. And the most important considerations when they're designing the lore is how to make these influences fit into the world of 14. Like Oda-san wanted to emphasize that it's really important that what we're trying to do is we're not trying to recreate reality. We are trying to imagine a world with perhaps similar locations, but still fitting the history of FF14. But, you know, at the same time, when we do draw on real life cultures and languages, we want to develop an understanding and a respect for those cultures, and we want to try to demonstrate that the best we can. Yeah. And this is a real point of focus for 7.0. I can't say much about it, but I will say that is something the team is very aware of. They're aware that we have not always made our goal of being demonstrating the proper respect for cultures in the past as a game and as a franchise, and we are really working on it.
Wow. Damn. Dude. I mean, that's, I mean, you gotta respect that. I mean, that's, yeah, I really hope that they're working closely with people, and yeah, to come to say something like that is just very, I mean, good for them. It's a great thing. And they, hopefully will, follow through on that, otherwise they'll get destroyed.
Thank you. Thank you. All right,
yeah, I hope
so
they
I'm
do
gonna
right.
go over some like
and
it's
great to be able to admit like, hey, yeah,
we
we fucked up. Like, there's been times where we fucked up. I mean, me of all people can relate to that, you know. So I don't know. I think it just for them especially, it just says a lot to be able to just say that in front of a live crowd and on a stream and stuff. That's just a big, I don't know. It's a nice gesture.
They'll have time for other stuff.
The chuds in the live stream chat were malding at this part, calling it woke justifications. Oh god.
So I wanted to give an example of how we use names in different locations to sort of build out this lore and this core concept of each area. So first I wanted to take a look at Thavner. As you know, Thavnir is a multicultural society. We have the Arkasodara, we have the Ora, and we have the Hurs, who both settled in the area. But they all made peace with each other. So now it's this very nice concept of a world where, like a country where everyone has come together, and while still maintaining their diverse heritages, they all work together and have created a unified nation. So to show that, we wanted to maintain different linguistic influence as well, to show that, no, those cultures are still there. Even though Thavnir is a melting pot, it wasn't that one culture overwrote all the others. They've really all come together to create this society. So that's how you get some names that are based on Ottoman Turkish, because one of our key inspirations for this area was sort of the time of the Ottoman Empire, which had a lot of linguistic mixing between Turkish.
Didn't we talk about that, chat? Remember when we went over that? And I was like, yeah, pretty sure this is very Ottoman Empire shit. It was that was a good stream. I really enjoyed those discussions. This segment is, damn, this is a good ass panel.
Turkish. Because one of our key inspirations for this area was sort of the time of the Ottoman Empire, which had a lot of linguistic mixing between Turkish and Arabic, a lot of different cultures coming together. So that's why some of these names, and particularly the names related to the societies that came later than the Arkasodara, those are more Ottoman Turkish themed. They're not directly from Ottoman Turkish, but that was an influence. And then we have these names that are directly Sanskrit. And as in the real world, the Sanskrit names are still used in the religion of the area. So this was sort of a traditional language of the Arkasodara, and I imagine they still speak a version of it today, but this old version is still used for religious terms. And actually, Khadga, I can't pronounce it. I'm extremely white. I'm sorry. You just have to own that at some point. But yeah, that also has a religious meaning in the Thavnarian context, but you'll have to check the lore book to see what it is, because I'm not telling you.
Mayonnaise on white bread white out here.
And of course, Thavnir is a society that has had a lot of trade, and they've had a lot of people coming through, so they all speak the common tongue. So they're very comfortable mixing their own more heritage languages with the common tongue, which is AKA English. And this also comes up with distinct names for NPCs as well. So on the more Ottoman Turkish side, we have these. To develop these sort of names, I actually looked at...
Varshan, crowned with words. Wow. Joy wrought of love for Marid. Wow. Wow, this is really cool. Nadine, knower of justice. Yeah, Matsya, Nirana.
Records of names from the Ottoman Empire, and tried to find some distinctive sounds that would sort of convey this theme and also fit in with the legacy names we were using from FF11. Which is a concern always. So then I took them and I came up with these word parts that you can always use to create names that will sound sort of Hannish. But I got a little carried away because this was my first time doing NPC names, so I gave every single one of them a meaning. I was looking up some, naming stuff about Turkish names, and I thought it was really cool how some of them have...
She named them all, and wow, and dude, what? Gets to put meaning behind their names by using structural influence from... Dude, what the fuck? Her brain is way more wrinkly than mine. What the fuck?
More poetic meanings.
Definitely do the work, trope.
So I came up with names for everybody with meanings, and that's what those are. On the other side, the devs came up with the idea for the Arkasodara, who have much simpler names, and this is...
Matsya means fish. I feel like you guys must have told me that at some point, but I feel like I'm learning it again for the first time right now, and it's a good thing Matsya had good side quests later and stuff, because man, fuck those fish.
fish.
On the nose for Matsya, let me tell you.
That's gold.
So like many cultures in real life, the Arcosodra are drawing from what is important to them when they create their own names, and these are like important things from the world around them. And one thing I thought that was cool about this in the 14 context is you get personal names like Xiroda, probably pronouncing that wrong, but it's also a location name, and it's a person's name. So it's really showing the fact that the Arcosodra have been in this land for a long time, and this is their home.
So much so to the
course,
point
in
where
English,
like perhaps a location itself would inspire a name. That's pretty awesome.
Also tried to express this a bit through varied accents. Because this is a fantasy world, we really wanted to imagine a place where even if you're speaking English, you're not beholden to like what people think the correct pronunciation is. Like this is an issue in Britain, this is an issue in America. If you have what's considered to be a non-standard pronunciation, you're often judged for that. But that is not the case in Thavnair. We do have a variety of what you might call accents in Thavnair, but to the Hainish, the way that they all speak is the correct way to speak the common tongue. There is no one better way to speak
like aluminum and aluminium. Oh my god.
So, yeah, that's that one.
That's nice.
A slightly more complicated example where we were doing something completely different would be Elpis, which I'm told you guys all liked.
Elpis. Look at that up there. Wow. Look at this art. It's phenomenal. Oh, damn. Big extreme. Oh, damn. Some more on style shit. Oh, damn.
And these ones are, of course, in Ancient Greek.
Yeah.
But they are made up. Usually when I use Ancient Greek, I try to stick to, like, attested words and phrases. But in this case, Elpis is a place of creation. It's a place where the ancients probably wanted to get a little poetic. And in the depths of imagining, the ancients are also interested in this sort of like drama, sort of theatrical stuff from, like, as you might imagine, from ancient Greece. So a lot of these names are more poetic. I'll just show you them. They're really complicated. But yeah, like one idea that
Ethos Aletikos Boreas, taking pity on characters, the north wind Boreas. Calamelios Zephyros, joining in beautiful melody, the west wind of Zephyros. Misopsis Euros, detesting spectacle, the east wind Euros. Detesting spectacle because it's looking down on that other area. Philomethis Notos, delighting in stories, the south wind Notos. I don't know how to say that. Noetophorian? That which bears the fruit of understanding. Then all the winds. East wind, south wind, west, north.
we'll call her S-san from the scenario team came up with.
Cool.
She requested to be a spy today.
Okay.
Yes. But the idea that she came up with is that each of Elpis's like 4 main regions would be themed after a wind, but also after something from theater, like a different theatrical emotional experience. And she used these Japanese
That's the Medion area, the Medion tree spot.
concepts for that, which I then translated into ancient Greek. So these are all Homeric epithets expressing different emotional theater-going experiences. And I didn't think any of you would get that, but I hoped it would at least sound fancy and like, ooh, the ancients were like really on top of their stuff.
Yeah, that would have been a trillion miles over my head.
Steps for
Holy
that,
shit.
Which I then translated into ancient Greek. So these are all Homeric epithets expressing different emotional theater-going experiences. And I didn't think any of you would get that, but I hoped it would at least sound fancy and like, ooh, the ancients were like really on top of their stuff.
That was achieved.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's... Dude, like, the amount of complexity that goes into the inspiration and, like, deciding the names of this shit blows my mind. This is why anytime someone's like, Pyro, why don't you try to work for, like, Square Enix or, like, doing all this shit? I'm like, dude, because do you see these fucking people? Like, are you kidding me? No.
of course, there are also some more normal names because we always give you something so that you don't get totally lost.
Gotta come up with this shit, my God.
But of course, Elpis was not the only place that had Greek.
True.
Charlian also has Greek.
Yeah.
And why did you do that to me? Do you know how much Greek I know now?
I mean, you could think of it as a kind of growing experience. I planted the seed that grew into. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry. Again, it was one of those things where it's just like, oh yeah, Ishgard, we have this little place, yeah, Charlian, some goblins are living there now. It'd be fun to use ancient Greek, yeah, we're never going to use this again. You're starting to see a theme here, aren't you? All of my decisions are now...
My problem.
I'm going to sit kind of over here.
I'll protect you.
Half of this panel's for scolding Koji. I'm trying to be so clever. I know.
To make this distinct
It's
from
great.
Elpis in some way, right?
The sass is fantastic.
So just a little bit of an example here is the Charlians are some way more casual about their Greek use. Like in Elpis, it's all very like if a name has ancient Greek in it, it is fully
Then
ancient
fam.
Greek. Like that is what's happening because that was their language. Charlian are more scholars, right? So they are sort of very into Greek, but it's not necessarily their native way of speaking. And much like in the real world, they have developed a sort of Roman-style, Latin-style alphabet by which to express this, but they're not always super consistent about it. Like if you look at some of the spellings in Labyrinthos, you know, sometimes there's a C, sometimes there's a K, and I'm 100% sure that the scholars who came up with those respective names are still fighting to this day about how things should be spelled.
Probably, considering it's Charlian. It's such a nerd game dev joke to say. Her and Koji are up there snickering about this fucking nerdy ass joke she just made. God damn, dude. They're one of us. Look at them.
Respective names are still fighting to this day about how things should be spelled.
Look at them. They just...
Good way to cover your ass on that one.
Hey, it was totally on purpose. Do you know how hard it was to come up with this idea? Okay. So let's move on a little bit to our activity. Because obviously when you talk about the world lore, it's not just places, it's not just people, it's every single thing you get, like the items, and of course, the fish. So we're gonna skip over these little facts. Okay, no, I'll do the fun facts. I'll do the fun facts. Really, really fast.
Really fast.
Really fast. Okay, places. Places. Mari Lamentorum, all the names came from Garleans observing it, so that's why they are Latin and depressing. Bestway's Burrow.
Whoa. Whoa. Hold on. Slow down there. Let me hear that again.
Is Mari Lamentorum, all the names came from Garleans observing it, so that's why they are Latin and depressing.
What? They literally... Wait, what? They got their names from Garleans observing it. Wow, that's like... What? That's really fucking cool. I didn't know that. Of course you didn't know that. No one fucking knew that. What the fuck?
Bestway's Burrow.
What? That's so cool. I want more naming scheme background lore, dude. What the fuck?
Is all the names were come up with by the Loporrit, so they're a little
That makes
confused,
sense.
but they got
Okay.
the spirit. If you'd like to know more about the big cheese, check out the lore book again. Ultima Thule, of course, from all the names there, you will get some mad despair vibes. But there's also some interesting stuff. So like the Omicron unit names were designed to resemble astronomical catalogs.
Yes. Like, the more, in other words, if I'm not mistaken, the more scientific names for, stars and, star clusters and nebulae and, galaxies and, those kinds of things.
In real life. I don't know if anyone picked up on that, but I thought it was cool.
I did.
Oh.
That was pretty fucking sick.
And then we did have one consequence.
I think a lot of people did. I think that one's
were
a
designed
little
to
more
resemble
obvious.
astronomical catalogs in real life. I don't know if anyone picked up on that, but I thought it was cool. And then we did have one consequence.
Like Omega's name before Omega, what is it? It's, I can't remember off the top of my head anymore. It's been too long, but...
Of, like I said, usually we try to talk to not just English, but German and French. But we were in a bit of a rush producing more dragon names for Ultima Thule. And this was, again, Koji's fault. Imagine that.
Imagine that.
We asked him to give us more dragon names. He did not check those with German and French. I didn't realize he didn't check them with German and French, so it's half my bad. And then we end up with a dragon whose name means cabbage in German.
I mean,
Cole Ale the Cabbage Dragon.
cabbage is good.
Yeah, like, I mean, he's in there now. We're not changing it. Like,
Yeah.
sorry, Germany, but also you're welcome. Okay, now I will move on. So our activity today is...
Yeah, very sad Cabbage Dragon. Don't remind me, dude. Ugh, the dragon scenes in Ultima Thule tore me the fuck up. That was tough. With the little dragon and you gotta... Oh, God. Ugh. Just please don't. And then the Omicron Tribe quest healed me.
Fish related. So I thought I would ask my partner in fish crime, who actually comes up with all the background lore. I get a lot of compliments on the fish text, and like, thank you. I do work really hard on rendering it into English, but a lot of the like real weirdness in there comes from the Japanese. So big thank you to S-san as well.
I agree,
So I asked her for a few little bits of
100%.
info about how we come up with the fish lore. So first, we do get the fish themselves from the non-combat content team. There are some folks over there who just like know all the fish, which is good because there's like millions of fish, and I certainly can't remember what fish we've used already.
What the fuck is that? The Great Serpent of Ronka? Wait, you can fish up the Great... Hold the fuck up. This is a spoiler for my brain.
She will then name the fish, and I name the fish, and then she will write the descriptions. And they often use real-world fish facts. So we had a question about when do you use real-world fish facts versus when do you use fantasy fish facts. And usually if it's a fish that's showing up for the first time, you'll get your real-world facts because the lore team really wants to sort of give us a point of connection between the real world and our fantasy world, so that you can be more and more immersed in the game.
So why not
I have this
fish?
Sort of like
Fuck it! Let it be the fish! This is the job I want, using real animal facts and tooltips. Dude, what the fuck?
realistic touches. And also, because we're learning about these fish, we also want you to learn about these fish. And that is the case with a lot of lore in the game, I think. Like, if we're researching something culturally, it's like, that's really cool, and I want people to know about it, and I'm kind of hoping they'll, like, Google this afterwards. So that happens frequently. But for fantastical fish, usually the case is either, A, we don't have any more fish facts. Reality does not have this many fish facts. I'm sorry, we're just going to have to make something up. Or we do really want to communicate some extra lore about a place or something else, but we couldn't fit it anywhere else. So the fish seemed like an opportune area.
More than 1,000
fish. told me that often when she's writing so many fish descriptions, because you know there are many fish per patch, and especially in an expansion, you can have like 200 fish. And she says, so she's often just spending like 2 weeks at a time just writing fish and weeping. And she will often go get sushi for lunch and eat it while thinking, yeah, that's right. Got you.
She's getting back at her demons. Oh my god, not Joelle. Not Joelle, no.
And at the bottom, you can see some of Essan's favorite fish here. I highly agree with the Greater Serpent of Ronka. And I also agree with all the fish in Ultima Thule. Like, those rule. Like, they're so weird.
They're so weird. Their tooltips are hilarious.
Okay. Activity. Okay, we are going to describe a fish. This is what happened last time.
So yeah, for those of you remember the last Physical FanFest, we decided to just make a fish here up on stage, and this is what happened. We kind of went overboard, but we're gonna do that again, and I think we're gonna go overboard again, aren't we?
There's no board but overboard. Oh, except for larboard and starboard.
Let's not talk about larboard and starboard. Overboard today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's stay away from that. Thanks.
So I got a few facts from the team. First of all, we had the non-combat content team give us a fish to work on. And then I asked Oda-san for some facts. So our fish today lives in a lake high up in the mountainous Urcopacha, which we introduced yesterday in the keynote. Legend has it that these lakes in this area were once part of the sea, and perhaps
The last bullet point.
up high in the mountains, yes. And at that time, that being the case, they are very salty.
Salty fish?
Salty lakes. This fish may also be salty. I
Well,
don't
if anything
know.
in a salty lake has to be a salty fish.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe.
Maybe.
It looks like this. It's this guy. It's this guy.
Yeah.
That is literally a fake fish with googly eyes glued to its fucking face, dude. What the fuck is that? Look at that fucking thing. Yo, Ma! There's a weird fucking fish out here. It looks like grandma, the fucking thing. What the
Dev team has
fuck?
been waiting to implement this fish for ages. They wanted to put it in a previous patch, but they weren't able to, and so they were like, what about this fish? And I was
That
like,
exists in a Japanese
love it.
museum? Really?
do it.
You're lying.
We're
dude.
going to ask you guys
What?
to come up with some ideas. I'm going to ask a few questions.
Gremlin.
We're going to have maybe 2 people answer each question. Then we're going to have you, after each question, cheer
Model
for
from the Natural History Museum of Helsinki, Finland. Mentioned. Finland mentioned, I feel seen. Really?
I
Well, if
don't
anything in
know.
a salty lake has to be a salty fish.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe.
Maybe.
It looks like this. It's this
Oh,
guy.
yeah, it says down
It's
there.
this guy.
Yeah.
Model from the Natural History Museum of
The dev team has
Helsinki.
been waiting to implement this fish for ages. They wanted to put
a
it in
weird-ass
a
looking
previous
fish.
patch, but they weren't able to, and so they were like,
So you're
"We're gonna
so you're telling me that fake ass looking fish with googly eyes on it is actually an accurate model of a real fish? Is that what you're telling me right now? It's yeah, yep.
fish," and I was like,
She plays by its own rules, man.
I love it. Let's do it. So we're going to ask you
That's
guys
funny.
to come up with some ideas. I'm going to ask a few questions. We're going to have maybe 2 people answer each question.
Oh!
We're going to have you, after each question, cheer
that's
for which answer you like better. And then we will put together our little fish facts, and I will write it all into a text and post it on the lodestone later. Yeah.
All right, so lots of pressure, guys.
Ah, Chubra.
No
All
pressure.
stop me with that.
Alright, go.
What is the first question?
What is the strangest fact about this fish?
Okay, so do we have people out with mics?
We do have.
It looks like maybe one of the only fish. It looks so mad. It looks like maybe one of the only fish that only has a tail fin. I don't see any, like, there's no dorsal fin or like any other, I don't know the names of other fins.
People out with
We got a couple of you out with mics.
Operate.
So if you want to have a
It
great
looks
answer
like
to
a
this,
little sperm
just raise your hand. One of our guys will grab you. You say what
with
you
a
want,
face.
and then we'll vote on it later. Let's do it. So first off, what's the strangest fact about it?
I see Tony over there.
All right, Tony.
The strangest fact is that it probably has feet.
It has feet.
Probably.
Probably. You just can't see them, but it probably has feet. Okay, so number
I mean,
one,
we could add feet.
it probably
they
has
specifically
feet.
told me they would.
All right.
That's-
And now a second idea. Do we have somebody?
I think yes, we do, somewhere.
It can only swim in the left direction.
What?
It can only swim.
What does that mean to only swim left? If it... This fish is secretly a NASCAR driver, that one right there. Left turns only.
In the left direction.
It can only swim in the left direction.
Oh my God.
I told you We're not talking about larvae.
Like a Zoolander can only turn left.
Or do you say? Okay, so we have two options for this fact.
We want you to cheer for A or B. A is?
A is has feet, probably.
And B?
B, it can only swim in the left direction.
Talk about a blowout.
It is. A. Okay, B it is. It can only swim in the left. What's the
This
next
is a
question?
left swimming fish. I am going to write larboard. Like, don't test me.
Oh.
Okay. Next up. So what would a local person say about it?
Hands up.
And I
Tastes like feet.
want to review a little bit
No,
of
that's too easy. Someone said something about feet last time. Now they got me fucked up.
facts from the keynote. We know that in Urukopacha, we have a very small race, the Pelu Pelu, who are very into trading and making beverages and riding alpacas. And we also have a gigantic race that we don't really know anything about, but once ruled the area, though no longer. So those are your options for your local people that might say something about this fish.
Okay. First up.
It tastes like peanut butter.
Okay.
I feel like that is a Pelu Pelu advertisement.
Yes. Option A, it tastes like peanut butter. Option B, what do you got next?
Smells like Koji's musk.
I was going to say they believe it's the top of its food chain.
I mean, that is an apex predator.
And so what you're saying is if it's at the top, then it means it eats Lalafelds.
No, bad.
All right, we have a tough choice. We're gonna go with A, tastes like peanut butter, B, top of the food chain. A, tastes like peanut butter. B, top of the food chain. All right. And there we have it. All right, third question.
All right, our next one. Name that fish.
Joel! Name it Joel! Do it!
Oh boy. We'll give you 10
Gonna
seconds.
have to, yeah, think about it for a minute. Think about our facts so far.
Joeling.
So what
It's
we
a
know, it
Joeling.
lives in a
All right, 10
salty
seconds.
lake.
Let's go.
No, I'm reviewing.
A Joeling.
Salty lake. Urukopacha. Can only swim in the left direction. Top of the food
It's a
chain.
Joeling.
All right, what do we got?
Pudgy carp.
Pudgy carp.
Pudgy carp.
Koji carp?
Pudgy.
What?
Yeah, Koji.
Oh, pudgy. Pudgy carp. Pudgy carp. Pudgy carp. And option B.
Panko butter.
What?
What?
It's like panko cracker, but it with butter.
I still did not get the first half. I got butter.
I only heard butter.
Panko.
Oh my god. Panko butter.
Is it like a butterfish?
Oh, panko!
Panko butter.
We're living in Japan, and the A is pronounced slightly differently, and we are very confused. We want 2 names? Do we want 3 names? We want to get
Let's
a third
get like
name?
4 names. 2
4
more,
names,
because this is the
okay.
most important part.
It is the most important part.
They didn't want that one to have an opportunity to be the answer. They said, Panko butter? Nah.
So what do we have? We have
I said
pudgy
nah.
We have
carp.
pudgy carp. We have panko butter.
Panko butter.
How about the all right?
The all right, all right, all right.
We may have to shorten that in Japanese. I think if you wrote that,
Copyright.
it might explode the game. All right.
All right, fourth up.
Derp swimmer.
Derp
Derp
swimmer.
swimmer. Derp swimmer.
Much like this is our protagonist of the seas. Okay.
Okay, we now have 4 choices. We're gonna go A, B, C, D. A being
Pudgy Carp.
Pudgy Carp, B being
Let's just do them one at a time. Okay, Pudgy Carp, Panko Butter, All Right, and Derp Swimmer.
All right, here we go. A, Pudgy Carp. All right. B, Panko Butter.
Okay.
C, All Right. And D,
Derp Swimmer.
Derp Swimmer.
That's gonna
Those
be
last two are close.
Should we tie it between, do a tiebreaker between All Right, and Derp Swimmer?
Yeah, we're gonna have to.
We should just meld them together. Like,
Oh,
all right,
yeah.
Derp Swimmer, all right.
Oh man.
Okay, what I will do, I hate you.
You always cause problems on these
Okay.
panels.
All right, yes, Koji always causes problems. I will say, I think the All Right one will actually be easier to put into Japanese.
Uh-huh.
So let's do this. Let's make All Right the name, and then Derp Swimmer can be a nickname, and that will also go into the explanation along with your lovely left swimming facts.
Yes. We did it.
Thank
You
you
did
so
it.
much. Okay. So I did have eyes bigger than my stomach, and I'm not going to be able to answer people's questions.
But you will.
But we
But I
will.
will.
On the
Still will.
Lodestone.
Don't worry.
So you will get a little bit of a teaser about what they are for right now as I
Okay.
scroll through. But please do check the Lodestone because I will also put our fish result up on there. I'm going to say in about 2 weeks, Matt, because I'm coming back in Japan in like a week, and then maybe it takes like a week.
2 weeks or more.
I
Or more.
We're so tired.
He has this very
Please.
neutral expression. I feel like on the inside, he's just like, no.
Meanwhile, the host on the right's pure despair, just trying to stay awake.
Okay,
we'll
it
do
will
our
be
best.
coming.
He is
It will be
hurting, look at
coming.
him.
We'll be coming.
All right, so here's some of the questions I'm going to answer. I had a question about the song lyrics for Memphina, which I wrote and enjoyed. I had a question about the souls in the cocktails fight. But I will share this right now. Our voice actors were Nigel and Emma, also playing Vritra and Reen respectively. So if you enjoyed those voices, and I certainly did,
Cool.
I loved that tier. Thank them. Oh yeah, we have a question about the Ryan's migration pattern over time, so you get that.
We will
We
get
had
that.
a question about the naming of Azazla. Okay, and we will transition. We will go out with this last
That's a good
one.
question. I've seen this one.
So, were there other nations and cultures present in the world unsundered outside of Amarat? Or was the entire world at the time a singular nation under the collective
question.
rulership of the Convocation of 14? And I actually got a lot of questions about the ancient world outside of Amarat and Elpis. But unfortunately, this is the only one that I could get even a partial answer to. So according to Oda-san, the Convocation of 14 represented all of mankind. And at least at the time of the Warrior of Light's visit to Elpis, the entire star was within their jurisdiction. There were a lot of other questions. I did pass all those on. I wanted to know more. Nah.
Nah.
I've had that same conversation with Oda-san
Oh, yeah.
so many
all the
times.
time. So potentially this is a sign of things to come. I don't know.
At least at the time, yeah. There's some things that you could draw from that, potentially. But, yeah. I've thought about that since I saw the question.
I can't guarantee we'll answer all of your questions, but if you do want a few more tantalizing tidbits, as well as more of the type of stuff from this panel, fish things. A lot of people want to know like how old NPCs are, which like good, I guess that's in there. Get that. Then yeah, if you want some more
A
lore.
robust history of the first. Yes. Further info about ancient society and the convocation. Yes.
Please pre-order.
I've already pre-ordered it. I'm so fucking ready. Can't come soon enough.
Encyclopedia Eorzea 3.
Yes.
Thank you. Koji has not even seen Encyclopedia Eorzea 3,
No, I have not yet.
so
No,
read
I'm
it to
getting
become
early.
superior to Koji Fox.
God.
Finally.
Okay, and last but not least,
Yeah,
the
I
English
already got
team
it
is
pre-ordered
hiring
for Konex.
again, because we keep realizing we have a lot of work to do. Over and over, somehow it's always a surprise. So if you have a little Japanese skill, please do apply with us using this fancy QR code. And that is it for the panel today. I apologize
Great
that we weren't
panel.
able to get through everything, but I hope you enjoyed some of it.
It was fun, right?
Right?
Things.
Thank
Let's
you,
give it
Kate.
up.
Great panel. Here, I'll link this for anyone who is curious. I'll link it at the timestamp, which is there. That's a good one. I like that one. I wish I had seen that in person, but I'm glad that I got to watch it after the fact at least, so that's pretty dope. I wish I knew Japanese. Yeah, that's definitely something you gotta spend some time learning. That's for sure. Well, damn, dude. Ugh. Can't come soon enough. 6'5" at a dog trail? Holy shit.